Who would ever write off Mercedes? This is the Knockhill qualifying sprint to pole review.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We have just witnessed the qualifying and race to pole on Saturday, and Mercedes.
Yeah.
Not meant to be very good round here, apparently.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. We obviously had one practice session this morning, which Moffat actually topped. Was looking fairly sharpish because there was also another Audi up there in Dexter Patterson as well.
Correct.
So we thought going into a qualifying session, they could be the drivers to watch out for. However, a certain Mr. Moffat was slightly disappointed, I think it's fair to say, by his result in qualifying.
It appears that there were some issues with his dash that prevented the boost being able to be allocated, or being able to be used at the right time, which meant that he then gets locked out of the system, which was costing him time per lap. So.
It does feel a little like a driver excuse, doesn't it?
It does, although I think it's fair to say there have been some grumblings at PMR over the last couple of race weekends. Not necessarily unsurprising, given that it's a new car and it's now a four-car team, technically speaking. So, yeah.
So obviously 2 sessions for qualifying having been set from practice. Ingram, a story of track limits once again, although Tim Harvey...
It's a conspiracy, mate. It's a conspiracy. Nobody else gets track limits.
Oh, dear. Yeah, he had, I think, 4 or 5 times,
if not more,
dismissed because of track limits.
They just want something to win, don't they?
Yeah, although Sutton's performance in qualifying wasn't particularly great either. No. He also had a couple of lap times deleted through track limits. Osborne had the first real incident in the first session, managed to outbrake himself going into turn 1. Went for a nice dive down Duffer's Dip and onto the grass. Gilbert actually had a puncture in the first session as well, a left rear puncture. Didn't see why.
Well, the tyre blew up, that'd be why.
Possibly caught it on a curb or something like that. Had to come in and get that tyre changed over. But it was Adam Morgan in that first session who set actually 2 laps that would have been quickest for that session, with the quickest lap being a 50.830. Into the second session, as I said, Sutton struggled.
Yep.
You said this could be the weekend.
I did.
And it looks as if, even for all of sort of like those top 3 drivers, they all struggled in the qualifying session.
And Cook.
Cook as well. So Boost could actually have a little more to play for this weekend. Shedden was the fastest in that second session and would line up second on the grid, just 0.03 of a second behind Adam Morgan. Darrell de Leon and Rainford would be on the 3rd row with a mighty good performance from Chris Smiley as well. And I've also got down here that Cook has done something with his hair. Can we talk about that now? Or?
Oh, wait. Well, we might. It's bleached it blonde.
Yes, it was quite striking on the video that we saw.
It's also worth pointing out, just before we go on to the sprint to pole, that Sutton lost time for track limits. So did Smiley. So did Leon. I think Morgan lost one as well. Rowbottom did. So it's not a conspiracy against Ingram before some of the Facebook drones come out and start suggesting that there's an agenda at play. Just don't push the car over the white line. It's fairly simple.
Yeah, there looks like a couple of hotspot areas this weekend.
2 and 7.
Where they're going to be keeping an eye on it for all the right reasons as well, because they are points of the track where if you extend that little bit more or cut that little bit more, you are going to gain a significant advantage. So I think it's all fair this weekend.
Yeah, I've got no problem. I just think it's daft that you'll see the Tin Hat Brigade out in force. I also don't like the fact that you cut the pit exit into turn 1. We saw a very near miss with one of the cars coming out of the pit lane. That seems to me a little bit bonkers that you're allowed to cut that pit exit for the sake of get in the race. I understand it more because there's less likely to be a car coming out, but in that qualifying style format, it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, but there will be blue flags at the exit of the pit lane to say, look, there's a car coming out.
There are, but people don't.
It's always a risk.
Drivers and flags. We saw last year how said not appreciate what a blue flag meant. We've seen yellow flags ignored in all forms of motorsport over this year and beyond. So it just, to me, that is a bit. The pit exit for me is sanctuary. You shouldn't be in it unless you're coming out of the pit.
Yeah.
But you also get, you think about F1, you can't come across that line before a certain point. So it seems bonkers that here you can go into that line. But there you go.
Getting on to the actual race then.
As you can see, we're desperately trying to find things to talk about because once again, it wasn't a classic race. I'd say it was one of the better sprint to pole races. But again, I think we did see, for the most part, it settled into its usual rinse and repeat that we've seen all season, which is the first few laps are a little bit hectic and then it kind of settles down from there.
There seems to be a lot more action throughout the midfield this week.
And that I agree with. Yeah.
The opening lap, which we'll get onto now, saw the action, or the main action of the race.
Yeah, so Morgan got away from the line well. Behind him, Shedden did not. Had to come across to try and cut off Rowbottom. They made contact. Rowbottom did well not to lose it going down to turn one. Came back onto the circuit and Shedden wouldn't let him back into second. So a little bit hip and shoulder, but basically all fine.
Yep.
Moffat was off. Replays on board suggest he was tapped off by whom we do not know. You think it might be Collard, but
either Collard or De Leon were in the same area as him. Replays are unclear, but definitely the onboard from Moffat, you can hear a hit into the car.
You can. That then put grass through the radio. He had to come to the pit and looked very unhappy with his days of work. Cook was then off in his what is becoming his usual place. I can remember at least two previous where he's gone off here.
The big one in the Civic where he went in backwards,
and another one in the Civic, in the Civic, or or was it the synthetic one where Sutton helped him off in the rain?
Possibly.
Anyway, I've certainly seen that movie before with Cook ending up in that barrier. Replays unclear. I think based on the proximity to the nearest car, Cook lost it himself on rear tyres, but happy to be disproved on that.
Yeah, there's two rules of thought, and even Tim Harvey's going more for down the colder rear tyres, a little bit over exuberant coming through turn 3.
There was no damage on the back of his car. Now, okay, a single tap wouldn't necessarily leave massive damage, but you'd expect at the very least a bit of paint trading or scuff marks, and from what you could see on the pictures, there was none of that. So, yeah, absolutely. We then saw a few spots of rain on the camera as the safety car ended. The wipers were well and truly on. Teased us a little bit because it never fully amounted to the downpour I think we're all praying for.
Very much psychological, I think, although at points of the track you could be forgiven for seeing it a little bit heavier than other areas, because some drivers were tentative into the braking zone and then some drivers going a little bit too deep onto the brakes as well.
We saw Smiley get into fourth with a good elbows move out on Rainford at the hairpin. The BMW's lacking a little bit of the race pace that we expected. Hopefully for them, that's just a little bit of setup tweak that they can change tomorrow and be a little bit more competitive in the race itself. Moffat decided to pit for wets. I get it. He was already a lap down. Roll the dice at this point in case heaven's open. I can't actually remember the last time I saw this come off because we've said a couple of nearly moments, but
the thing is, at that point, he was already a lap down. Then when he pitted for the wets, he then became another lap down, and it was never really going to work. And there were 8 laps left at this point.
It would have had to have rained hard and fast, but we know from experience in Knockhill that the rain can come hard and fast. So that you're going to finish last either way. There's nothing to really, it's a risk that is absolutely worth taking, even though it didn't pay off on this case. We then saw what would begin the half of Scotland getting past Dorlin. Ingram first, then Doble, followed by Camish. Camish got bit back by Dorlin going down through the Duffers Dip. Camish then bit back straight away, and then, as I say, suddenly half of Scotland came by. Sutton, Patterson, and everybody else. In half a lap, he went from 8th to 16th, so 8 places lost in a blink of an eye for Dorlin. Unfortunate. Didn't really do a lot wrong. Just
it was a case of he got shuffled out and couldn't, not necessarily regain his momentum, but it was difficult to get back into a flow, and almost knocked him out of that flow.
Well, it's a momentum circuit, isn't it? So the fact that he lost his momentum and then the whole sort of pack behind
he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time in every bit of the circuit for half a lap. Yeah,
it was unfortunate, but I don't think, I mean, Sutton probably the biggest miscreant in this because he did smack him up the rear. However, that didn't actually lead to anything because in the next set of corners, Dornan would get back past Carriage before this mass exodus happened. So in terms of the rest of the moves, everything was basically fine. I just think he got a little bit unfortunate with the way, as you say, he got shuffled out and hung out to dry a little bit. We then saw a final push from Rowbottom on the last lap, trying to get into second, putting all the car in all the right places, but Shedden isn't a 3-time champion for nothing. You're not going to get past him with any great ease.
And Morgan was surprisingly comfortable out front. It was fluctuating between a second and 1.2 seconds out front, and he didn't look phased by it at all.
He only looked phased under the heavier rain part where Shedden did close the gap, as you would perhaps expect with Shedden's experience of Knockhill. But as soon as that rain stopped and the whole track dried, it was pretty much plain sailing for Morgan. And we then saw Doble nick Collard on the line by 0.06 of a second of a drag. Slightly surprised that Collard didn't let Ingram pass at any point in this race. Yes, he would have probably had to concede a place to Doble as well. But actually, if you're being really hard-ass about it, he's not racing the whole season.
No.
It's not for a pole position, and Ingram needs the places and fast. So I think he's finished 2 places in front of Sutton Ingram, which I'm going to put out there. I don't think it's really good enough for tomorrow, if I'm being brutally honest. I was a little bit surprised we didn't see that come into play.
I was still quite surprised to see how low down those 3. I'm going to put 3 title hopefuls in that.
Yep.
I know you possibly don't agree with that.
Well, there's only one title hopeful. That's why I don't agree.
But to see them finish, I think it was 9th, 10th, and 11th. It really makes me question our predictions for this weekend.
Well, that's
first of all, but we'll see how they bounce back tomorrow.
I think there's a couple of things at play here. First, that the way qualifying works, that everybody has the amount of boosts that they have available every lap. So there's never a boost trade-off, which I think is a bit difficult then to try and make some passing. I think another problem for them was that they qualified poorly by their standards in terms of the qualifying section. And Knockhill's a really difficult circuit to pass on. It is narrow, as you saw with Dorlin as well. If you get shuffled wide, you can lose masses of places. So I think from Ingram's point of view and Sutton's point of view, they weren't going to do anything massively risky here because you'd rather start 13th than you were 20th.
Yep.
And I think you saw with Moffat as well in this race and Cook, who both would have high hopes this weekend, how quickly that can change. And also because of the tight nature of that first sector, with all the undulations as well, how easy it is to be pitted off or caught up in somebody else's incident. So I also think tomorrow, if it rains, we'll see the boost become completely obsolete. I think that'll be the great level, and we'll see that we know that Sutton and Ingram are both excellent wet weather drivers, as are a couple of other drivers on the grid. Rainford comes to mind as one of those. Shedden obviously comes to mind as one of those. So, and it is due to rain tomorrow, so we'll have to see how that goes.
I really hope it does. I think it'll make it really entertaining. I'm quite looking forward to tomorrow's races because of that potential, but I also think with how drivers have finished today, then it's going to shake a few things up tomorrow.
My only worry for some of our predictions is that I'm surprised that Chilton was nowhere pace-wise, given that he is much lower down the championship. I'm slightly worried about Rainford and De Leon. As I say, I'm hoping it was only Gilbert on the flip side had a much better start to the weekend than he had at Thruxton. Yeah, but they were nowhere near troubling the front. Collard had about the pace or thereabouts. That was fine. So I think the Hyundai's okay. Obviously, Smiley was excellent today in that. So, but I'm a little bit worried about that. I mean, it's hard to then look at Osborne and Selby for pace, but they were really poor this race as well, in my view. I'm not sure. But on the flip side, I was actually quite refreshed to see a podium that didn't have a Napa or a Virtue car on it. And I know that
was nice.
That might sound a little bit sour grapes, but it was nice to see that we might this weekend have a little bit of difference up front. Not great for me, given that one of your predictions was we'll have a first podium sitter of the season, wasn't it? Or was that last weekend?
No, that was last weekend.
Oh, okay. That's much better.
You can relax. For
that. But hopefully we'll see this sort of unpredictability leak into tomorrow, because I think that Knockhill brings that naturally anyway. But also I think it's good for the championship if we can see perhaps not having every podium dominated by a Napa or a Virtue car, which has been the case for the previous 5 rounds.
Agreed. I must thank you all for the amount of views we've already had on the preview this weekend out. Knockhill always seems to do massive numbers for us, so very glad of that. And if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed. Get that bell on, make sure you like down below and comment as well. Let us know how you think tomorrow is going to end up and whether there are going to be any shock results.
And if you're only watching Knockhill, why we do a whole we cover the whole season. This is not the Knockhill British Touring Car Podcast. We do the whole season. We do driver deep dives. We do a few fun and games over on our TikTok, although we need to do some more of those. We do stuff in the off season. We do 10-minute with chat. So we haven't done all of those this season because there hasn't been a lot to chat about because it's been a little bit duller than last year, for being honest. But there's plenty more content. So don't just restrict yourself to Knockhill stuff. There's the whole world of British Touring Car Podcasts out there, and it's all free. I can't say it any better than that.
And we will be back with a full review of all of Sunday's races as well on Monday or Tuesday, depending. But yeah, we'll bring you all the action from tomorrow. And until then, stay safe and we'll speak soon.
Enjoy the action.